We know that SoulCalibur VI sold better than Bandai Namco was expecting. We know as of July 2021, the game has shipped 2 million units worldwide. Digital sales figures haven't been reported on and are likely not to be released. While those sales numbers may seem paltry, one has to consider fighting games were basically a niche genre in late 2018. In late 2022, they still have relatively small audiences compared to battle royales such as Fortnite or first-person shooters like Call of Duty. Despite being a good game, SoulCal VI definitely had some problems, and we're going to cover some of them in this video, and how Bamco can fix them when SoulCalibur VII inevitably happens. One of the issues SoulCalibur V faced was moving away from the classic characters. Of the 28 characters on that game's roster, 10 of them were newcomers displacing fan favorites like Sophia, Cassandra, and many others. This really drove fans away. SoulCalibur VI was a return to form in many ways. The roster was just one of the things Bamco did to rehabilitate the image of the brand after the flops that were SoulCalibur V and Lost Swords, which most definitely drew the ire of the fanbase. This should indicate that SoulCalibur VII needs to focus on bringing back all of the classic characters from 6 and reintroducing some legacy characters as well. Building from point 1, this game is going to need a massive roster if it wants to compete. You can't just rely on nostalgia baiting your audience. Bamco will certainly need to come up with some newcomers. SoulCal VI only shipped with 2 new non-guest characters, Grow and Aswell. Geralt of Rivia did ship with the base game, however he's a guest character and for the purposes of this video does not count. On average, most fighting games introduce a handful of new characters with every new entry, with 2 to 3 being on the lower side of things. Even with 2 seasons of DLC, SoulCalibur VI still wound up with a relatively small roster of 29, which brings us to the third point. I've said it once and I'll say it again, fighting games live or die on their roster. It's exceedingly rare you'll find a fighting game that's loved by the masses with a small roster size. Games like Guilty Gear and BlazBlue are exceptions rather than the rule. Now, SoulCalibur VII doesn't have to go balls to the walls like an SNK does with the King of Fighters series, but it does need to feature a large number of characters at launch. The final roster size for 6 would be a good starting point and expand to the upper 30s to low 40s when all is said and done. For 7 seasons passes anyways. This is yet another point I'm constantly making regarding fighting games. This type of game lives or dies based off the amount of single-player content you offer the player base. Having robust online features is a great thing, however, if you only cater towards online play and competitive players, you're effectively cutting off potential sales from the more casual crowd, or for those who do not wish to pay for services like PlayStation Plus, Xbox Live, or Nintendo Switch Online. While SoulCal VI did offer a lot of single-player content, you really start to see how shoestring the budget was for this game, especially when it comes to the story mode, as it was told with simple character portraits, text, and some voice acting. The Project Soul team really did make the most of their budget though, even if you can see how budget the title was in every facet of the game. This game is definitely going to have to be a big budget title. For a lot of people, this is going to be a more contentious point. As I said earlier, fighting games are a niche genre with a very narrow return on investment. So why should Bamco throw a larger budget at this game? It's thanks to SoulCalibur being such a niche title that giving it a big budget would actually make it stand out. At the moment, 2D fighters are the flavor of the month, with very few proper 3D fighting games taking top billing. Right now, the biggest fighting games on the market are Guilty Gear Strive and The King of Fighters 15. One is a 2D anime fighter and the other is a 3 vs 3 team fighter. The biggest fighting games coming in 2023 are Street Fighter VI and Tekken 8. Of the two, only one of them is a 3D fighter. The last big 3D fighting game is arguably Tekken 7, meaning the pool of 3D fighting games is exceptionally shallow at the moment. Another compelling argument for making SoulCalibur VII a high-budget game is because the series calls for spectacle. When you watch the intro cinematics of 6 just before a fight, it feels like they're showing off a high-budget movie scene. So if Bamco actually let the dev team have a decent-sized budget, they can lean into the spectacle that this game series calls for. Give the game a decent budget and let the dev team go wild with the story mode and you'll have the casuals buying the game just to experience it. Look at how NetherRealm Studios handled the Mortal Kombat games. Even if you aren't a huge fan of the franchise, Mortal Kombat sells because of it standing out. Why does it stand out though? Because the franchise has a big budget and focuses on delivering a cinematic story that's interesting, and by offering a lot of single-player content. The gratuitous violence also probably helps it out. Another thing that really helps a fighting game sell is a lot of offline modes. Time attack, survival, arcade, and story mode are all necessities. One thing that Gauro Mark of the Wolves did really well was including leaderboards for its story mode and for its survival mode. Incorporating this type of thinking would vastly expand the shelf life of SoulCalibur VII. Expanded online modes could also provide a plus. Seriously, online survival mode would be an excellent idea, which brings us to the penultimate point. Strong online features are the other hill on which fighting games live or die on. If you have poor online play, or if you have shallow online options, most players, both competitive and casual, will simply move along to the next fighting game. Fighting game players have the attention span of a gnat. If the game isn't fresh and new, they're going to move along rather quickly. More so if your game doesn't feature good online. What do I mean by good online, though? Good online can more or less be defined as utilizing rollback netcode and good matchmaking. Why is rollback important though? Basically, it helps manage laggy connections and improve stability when playing against people who are far away from you. Let's take a look at the King of Fighters 15 for just a second. The game has amazing rollback netcode, but it fails in one spectacular way. Its matchmaking system sucks. You either don't find matches for 10 to 15 minutes on end, or you get matched against a player whose skill level is so much higher than your own that you literally cannot do a thing, which takes away a lot of the fun of fighting games. This is one area where Guilty Gear Strive does things right. The tower system, in theory, means you'll always be able to find a player of roughly your skill level to fight against. So how can Bandai Namco ensure that you'll always be able to find players around your skill level while keeping in mind fighting games have a relatively short lifespan? This brings us to my final point. If you've been watching FGC content for a while on YouTube, you'll know that there's a very small but vocal community of content creators clamoring for free-to-play or completely free versions of future fighting games. This is certainly a good idea, and the business model did work well for Dead or Alive 5 and 6, albeit the Core Fighters versions were necessary evils because of the game's floundering sales. However, Sega proved with Virtua Fighter 5 Remake that a free-to-play model can and does work for giving you a strong player base. For the month Virtua Fighter 5 was free on PS Plus, it was downloaded by millions of players. Keep that model for the lifespan of the game and offer lots of free DLC and some paid DLC, and you're going to make your money back in the modern fighting game era, and then some. Thanks for watching, guys. What would you like to see from SoulCalibur VII, though? Comment below. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, if you liked this video, another of my videos should be popping up right about now. Also, if you want to watch me when I'm live streaming some fighting games or other gaming content, check out my Twitch, www.twitch.tv/Leaper90. Links for that and all of my other socials will be in the description below.